It's now time for Race Chat Live with Chris Creighton and Craig Moore.
All right, race fans, how the hell are you? Thursday night, Race Chat Live with Chris and Craig. I'm in remote. Buffalo Wild Wings. They're not an official sponsor. Race Chat Live, but a man's got to eat. So, sorry that I'm not in my normal studio spot, and there's going to be some background noise around here, but I've got a great, awesome co-host, Mr. Craig Moore, that should be here with us as well, along with Taz Taylor, the greatest new addition to Race Chat Live, and I believe our producer, Mr. CJ Sports. He'll be listening in to us, but just looking forward to a great show. Mr. Craig Moore, are you there?
Craig has not made it in the studio yet. Taz had messaged earlier he will not be joining us tonight, not sure why. But I'll take this opportunity real quick to make sure that I thank Carolina Sports Plus and More to Music. Without these great marketing partners, we wouldn't be able to do what we do or grow the way we grow. So I want to make sure I thank them. Make sure you guys follow us on Twitter at 110Nation. Like us on Facebook, the 110 Nation Sports. Also, check out the site, www.the110nationsports.com, for all the latest going on here at the 110 Nation. Added Podbean. It's an Apple podcast app to our resume of those, so I want to welcome those. They're catching the show over there. Just got two more outlets that I want to get knocked off on this list. We're still waiting to get approved on, but continuing to grow, and looking forward to listening to you guys tonight. And I'll let you know when he calls in, or I'll plug him in for you there, Chris.
All right. Yeah, we got a lot to talk about here tonight. I'm hoping Craig will join us here in just a few minutes. One of the biggest things is we're already into basically the month of August in CJ Sports, and we've yet to see some finalization on some silly season news. Brad Keselowski's still up in the air about where he's going to race next year. Denny Hamlin, of course, still on the clock as well. Clinton Boyer, several drivers, big-name drivers. We just don't know yet where they're going. Maybe we'll have a little bit of time to talk about that here tonight. Of course, we can talk about Chase Briscoe and Austin Cindric, two of the hot new rookies that are going to be looking, well, they're not rookies yet, but they could possibly be contending for Rookie of the Year next year.
As crazy as all that as all that sounds, Chris, I don't even think that's the craziest thing yet. Knowing that there's a possibility that Jimmy Johnson will be racing, but not in NASCAR next season, and the fact that we're going to have possibly a whole nother race league, I think that tops all the craziness going on.
Definitely a lot of things going on. This new race series, I'm glad that you brought that up. Wow, I mean, we can go back to the free agency all year. Of course, there's been 3 names already announced to race that series. Of course, if you haven't heard about it, it's the SRX series presented by Tony Stewart and Ray Evernham. They've teamed up. They've already got a car designed for it. They're naming drivers as we speak. Paul Tracy, Tony Kanaan, and Tony Stewart are already on the roster to race this new, I guess I would call short track series, and up to 9 more drivers to be announced later on. So, definitely, even though this has been a year of the virus, it has been a year of unexpected news, I would have to say, Mr. CJ Sports. Nobody would have thought at the beginning of the year that we would be talking in August about free agency from some of the biggest name drivers, and then on top of that, a new racing series that's already got a TV deal signed up with CBS. Yeah. I mean, this is a done deal, man. We are going to have a new racing series that's got a network to race on. All we as fans have to do is tune into it, and we got to do a better job of tuning into it than what we did with the XFL, because us fans is what makes or breaks these spawn-offs work. And the XFL, I think that they had the right idea. They had the right promotion. Unfortunately, I will forever believe that the virus itself killed the XFL. Yes. We were going to go somewhere with the XFL.
Yes, their ratings are continuing to grow. Their ratings continuously grew, and everybody loved the XFL. And I don't feel bad for Vince McMahon often because, you know, he kind of does some of the things to himself, but he's a billionaire, so you don't feel but so sorry for somebody. But second go around with the XFL, and this time when he did it right. He brought a lot of people in, and they did that right. And there was a lot of things.
Humongous deal to basically go bankrupt in the first year. You know, after the first year, that was supposed to be a long-term commitment, and Vince McMahon put a lot of money into that. And you know, it's just unfortunate. And once again, with this SRX deal, there's a lot of money that's going to be pumped into the series, and we're already getting named drivers as well. You know, the sky's the limit on who else could wind up being on this 12-man roster for these races.
Did you see that tweet? Did you see one of our veteran NASCAR drivers tweet talking about they were available? Did you see that tweet?
No, I did not.
Greg Biffle said he's available.
See, that was one of the ones that I said that they're going to have to get in on the side of it.
What's crazy is what I like about this is it's not just going to be on asphalt. Like this is going to give this is hitting all types of fans. And I tell you what, if Kyle Larson doesn't find himself back in NASCAR, I wouldn't be surprised if he dabs in this a little bit, especially the way he's tearing it up in the dirt right now. Yep.
Hold on one second, Mr. DJ. Sorry about that. We were putting in our order for our food there. I may have missed exactly what you said. Was that an open-ended question, or was that just a statement there, Mr. Steve?
Just statement. I said one of the great things I like about it is the fact that they're not just racing on asphalt. This opens it up for, one, all types of drivers, but two, this expands your fan base because you got some that like dirt, some that like asphalt. So knowing that these drivers in this circuit's going to run on asphalt and dirt is going to open this up for a whole bunch of possibilities. I said to include if Kyle Larson doesn't find himself back in NASCAR, the way he's tearing it up in the dirt scene right now, the possibility that Young Money might find himself running some races in this league as well.
And as we said before, the sky's the limit on this new series. We could see drivers that we haven't seen in ages, maybe Martin come back from him. I even think I threw out a handsome Harry Gant last night when I was going through my wish list of drivers that I wanted to see participate in this. And not just that, but let's talk about the iconic racetrack that we might could see in this, this upcoming series. We could see the dirt track of Charlotte. We could see the dirt track there in Texas, the one right beside Texas Motor Speedway. Of course, they build a dirt track out of Indianapolis every year. What if we got that one? You know, the sky's the limit, really, on some of these short tracks. And, of course, you know, you already expect there to be one at Eldora, right? Because that's owned by Tony Stewart. So, you know, it's going to be basically his home track right there. But
two things. One, being back in Ohio, I was getting ready to have my first opportunity because the girl that does my cooler, her husband races at the local track, but Eldora was going to be, they do one track that is not the regular track, and Eldora was going to be it this year. And I was going to make my presence and finally be able to step into the historic track of Eldora, but they're not doing fans this year for that. Kind of disappointed with that one. I've lost so much this year. Another name, I don't know what all names you guys threw out there, but I know someone else that plays in the dirt, and I've been to tracks where he's been out there, and I know he's got a team. Maybe we'll see Casey Kane do some racing again, too.
Oh, wow, yes, of course. Casey Kane, I mean, how quickly we can forget about the talent that he had in the Cup Series, and then to be able to transfer that over into the specialized car. But, you know, that's the thing. They're building a stock car that's going to be both made for dirt and for short tracks. You know, Mr. CJ Sports, we've watched this with the trucks. We thought, well, okay, they're just going to take a regular truck and they're going to turn it into a dirt truck. Well, that's not necessarily been the case. So I don't know if they're going to specifically build dirt cars for the dirt. I'm sure that it's going to be the same stock body and everything that the rest are. But that's one of the first questions I have for Tony Stewart or Ray Evernham is, will this car be compatible for both dirt and for short track? and it'll be very interesting if that is the case with this series. And I think that if there's any engineer that's going to bat right now to design that, they've got the right guy in Ray Evernham. I can remember years ago, I believe it was Jimmy Makar, who he was kind of the quiet crew chief behind the IROC series. Of course, Jimmy Makar's made a career over at Joe Gibbs Racing, and has definitely had quite a career himself, being over at JGR. But Ray Evernham definitely has the credentials to do what they're setting forth to try to do here.
For those that are listening to the show and this is the first you're hearing of it, one, you guys can follow this new racing league on Twitter. It's SRX Racing. I love how they're doing their Twitter. They announcing different drivers, kind of building everything up, letting you get a preview of the cars, merchandise. You guys can get some SRX Racing shirts and everything else. I love how, it's funny because as a race car driver, before Stewart was part of Stewart Haas Racing, I was not a Stewart fan. I could not stand Tony Stewart. He was just not a driver on my list. Once he became driver owner and got to be a little more vocal, and you got to hear more of the ownership side as he was a driver, as you guys caught part of the conversation about whether or not they're using Goodyear. I didn't get into the details of your guys' conversation, but we all know how many times Tony Stewart threw Goodyear underneath the bus. That was the Tony Stewart I began to love. And so knowing he's behind this and what we know we're going to see out of Tony Stewart and how he's handled Eldora, I'm very excited to see how this series rolls out and get to watch this.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting, and to watch something built from the ground up. I think that was what interests me the most about the XFL was the watching a league being built from the ground up. And I was only 19 years old when the XFL first showed up, and I was a lot younger when the USFL was created. So this is fairly new for us to watch a series to be created, from the ground up with such big names already behind it. And I felt like from day one, what was going to make or break this series was the type of drivers that they were able to land to be competitive. And let me tell you something: if you can get Juan Pablo Montoya or AJ Allmendinger or one of these other guys that are still competitive on a competitive basis every weekend, I mean, the sky's the limit. I mean, we want short track racing, and if this is what it's going to offer, man, I'm telling you, you better buckle in, put your helmet on, because we're in for a long ride.
Definitely interesting. I know when I saw I think it was a tweet that I originally seen come across my timeline somewhere. I think it was a tweet is where I saw it first. I had to start digging into things. I'm like, is somebody pulling my leg? Is this just some fake news stuff? And that's when I reached out to you guys. Like, y'all heard anything about this? This is I think everybody started diving into seeing what this was all about, and then it became more and more credible sources, and then we've seen the Twitter account and everything else, and it's like, oh snap! Like this is about to happen. Like NASCAR, you need to figure your life out because you've got some competition. They might not be running a 30-something week schedule and everything else, but I think a lot of fans are tired of a lot of the BS, and if we can turn our attention to support something that's not going to have all the BS, I think that you can win a lot of fans over that way.
Well, and that's interesting that you bring up that topic, Mr. Sports, because my question is this to help elevate the product, or is this a competition against the product? I feel like NASCAR took it as a competition against the product because it was kind of weird that on the same day that they announced this new series, NASCAR also announced that they were not going to be racing at Eldora this year. If that wasn't that wasn't kind of how NASCAR stood against what's going on here, I don't know what's a better example of it. But I would say that this, just like the NFL and the XFL, this is going to elevate both products. This is going to give us something to watch. Of course, it's not just going to be regulated to NASCAR drivers. We already see actually, the first three drivers all have experience in the IRL. So,
yes.
Any shots from Greg yet?
No, ain't nobody else in the studio.
Wow. Well, I know we're racing New Hampshire this weekend. If you didn't catch any of the racing over this past weekend, the doubleheader for the trucks and the Xfinity Series, don't feel bad. We had a lot going on this past weekend as well, and being that it was a Cup weekend that was off, we weren't watching it live. We caught some of it on DVR, but definitely the race at Kentucky on Thursday was very entertaining. I feel like the PJ1 did its job. We had a lot of passing. The race was entertaining, basically from the drop of the green flag. We're seeing a lot more wrecks this year, Mr. CJ Sports. I don't know if you've noticed that. Quite a few more. It's been this year. We've seen not only NASCAR create a great, kind of a roll the dice type situation, but also we've seen a different side of the competition on the racetrack. I think a lot of that has to do with the lack of practice and the lack of qualifying. NASCAR come out this week and said, look, we are not going to qualify or practice for the rest of the year. What do you think about that? Is that a move in the right direction? Do you still feel like it has affected competition? I mean, we just seen Austin Dillon earn his very first victory. Austin Dillon didn't use strategy to win this one. Austin Dillon went out there and he won this race with Tyler Reddick finishing second. Is this a product of no practice and no qualifying, or was Austin Dillon just in the right place at the right time? Because it's hard to say that when you have two RCR cars that finished 1-2.
I'm not going to take anything away from the RCR cars. I think they have done a lot of work over there to become more competitive. Now, obviously, another topic that we'll be getting into in the wreck that kind of changed how the race, I think, played out with Quinn Hoff. I think that is a factor. The wrecks and stuff, I think that is probably of a product of you had a bunch of drivers that we took a bunch of time off. Then you have a bunch of rookies that are not getting the usual test time. They're not getting usual practice time every weekend, no qualifying. You pretty much, you get in the car and start the race, and that's it. So, you got some of these car drivers that have not been at some of these tracks, and in some of these tracks they've not been in the Cup car. And then if they have been in the Cup car, it's a very minimum for some of these drivers, and they're not getting a chance to test and to qualify and practice and all the other things that normally we would get. So I do think that has played a little bit into it. Then also we're racing 1, 2, 3 times a week. So, and I tell you what, NASCAR has capitalized on that. They have taken full advantage. Hey, let's have a race on Sunday. Let's have a race on Wednesday. Let's have a race on Saturday. And that's just the Cup Series. Not counting the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series. Like, it's insane how many races. And it makes you wonder why NASCAR has not done this in the past. I understand people work, and that's the whole reason why it's either a Saturday night or a Monday or a Sunday race usually anyway. But there's no other sport, so it makes it easy to get these views and have people tune in when you're really the only sport going on. Well, we'll see if the numbers change any with the NBA starting tonight. Baseball started last week, and you got NHL that just started. So now you got 4 sports going on versus just having one sport. It was easy to kind of suck in all the views, but I tell you what, it's definitely been a change of pace with that, and maybe that's got some factored into it. You're bouncing from track to track, and I know some of the races have been back-to-back same tracks, but also some of the tracks during the week have been maybe a Charlotte and a Martinsville or whatever. They weren't exactly the 2 same tracks, or Kentucky and someone else in the same week. So you're not practicing, you got no testing, no qualifying, and you're expected to go from a Bristol to a Kentucky or whatever they've done, in the same week. So, or Kansas and Kentucky, whatever they did. So I'm sure that's got a factor into it as well.
And probably my biggest concern is the ratings are not showing that people are enjoying this type of race, and I feel like this has been the year where they've thrown the kitchen sink at us. And I don't know if the tradition, it's because we've broken tradition that some of the followers are not watching. There's not like there's anything. It's not like there's anything else on TV. But it seems like each week when the ratings come out, we're just kind of disappointed that they're not higher than what they are. And I really can't pinpoint why that's the case.
NASCAR kind of let themselves get into this whole political stuff. I'm not going to say that's all of it, but NASCAR has kind of pissed a lot of fans off getting involved with all this and banning flags and allowing different things. Not to sound like a broken record, and, it is what it is, and I understand what they were trying to do. They want to be a more diverse sport and open it to everybody, but I think also at the same time they kind of went about things the wrong way and kind of then when things didn't play out, instead of just kind of taking a step back and reevaluating, they kind of doubled down and kind of forced it all down your throat. And a lot of fans didn't take that real well. They I don't know. I just how I feel about it. And so I feel that they got a little too political with things and should have either gradually moved and transitioned into things or did baby steps or something instead of this is what is going to happen. And it's kind of funny because, and Miss Brandy's had this conversation. We've had this conversation where here in Ohio it makes no sense where people get pissed off and talk about the Confederate flag. I can understand being someone that has lived 20-something years down in North Carolina and been down south and understand that a lot of it is not hate. A lot of it is tradition. A lot of it is heritage. A lot of it is just it's a Southern thing. And I completely understand that. But then you have the people up here like Ohio that we fought the people in the South. Like this is, how can you call this a heritage thing when that you being in Ohio has nothing to do with the Confederate flag, has nothing to do with the South and everything else. So I understand where NASCAR was kind of in this predicament because you have people that, no, it's not about heritage. It's not about being in the South, everything else. That flag represents something that is not good.
If a Yankee has a triple flag, then there's something wrong here.
and you got to see Brandy, because Brandy don't get very, and she stays very, you don't see a lot on her page. She stays out of all that stuff. We've had that conversation that you don't understand why people, especially from Ohio, get all riled up and brings on her timeline or what she sees, and it's like, you're not even from the South. Like, you're from Ohio. Like, you fought these people. Like, we didn't, but, the North and the South fought. So you can't claim heritage when this is not what you were about, where you're from was about anyway. So I just feel that's factored into it. And I think the other thing, even though NASCAR has capitalized on this and has tried to they've been really sport and trying to give us a sport to watch and give us something to be entertained with, a lot of people are just so fed up with everything. I mean, now you got North Carolina's already passed it. We're getting ready to pass it. We can't drink past or buy alcohol at 11. Ohio's talking about changing it or doing it where you can't get alcohol past 10 o'clock, but you're just about to kill every business. And then you got that doctor coming out talking Bucci, Bocci, whatever the hell his name is, talking about wearing goggles and everything else. But these people just keep going on and on with this. I've done had corporate called on my employees because they didn't have their mask over their mouth. I had the health department in there today because customers calling about other customers. Like this, by the time people get home, they're just so fed up with this garbage going on. I don't know if NASCAR is really on top of the do this.
Reported for not wearing a mask, and some Karens in this world have nothing better to do.
Yeah.
But now let's talk about the political side of things and how that's turned off certain fans. Do you know who's kept their mouth shut in all this political stuff? There's two leagues out there that have kept their mouths shut during most of this political stuff, and I want to see if you can name both of those.
The NHL.
That's one. PGA.
Yeah.
Now, if these two organizations were smart enough to keep their mouths shut, my question is, NASCAR, why the hell did you have to open your mouth? Why did you have to annihilate your fans? We understand that there's that first group of people that want to enjoy the sport, but also at the same time, the way that they presented themselves, the way that they made this a policy, they put themselves out in the open. Then they had this false, claim that somebody found a noose in Bubba Wallace's pit stall at none other than the track at Talladega, which is dead center of the South, gives a whole political mind to everybody all around the United States that, Alabama's as fast actors as what they claim in the books, and they're not. But the fact of it is that at the same time, you've had two major organizations like PGA and NHL that have just kept their mouth shut. And has anybody attacked them for staying quiet? Nobody has gone after them.
And it just kills me because once they realized that it wasn't everything that it came out to be, instead of just saying, you know what, we overreacted, and we would have understood, because with everything going on and with the George Floyd stuff, we would have all understood why you reacted. But instead of just saying, you know what, we overreacted, we apologized, that's not what we thought it was, you doubled down and carried on with it. So then you pissed off more your fans. And then you got Bubba Wallace that now is, you're looking at a race team that's been struggling for years. And then now all of a sudden you pick up sponsor after sponsor after sponsor, and it's put a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. Like you instead of just apologizing or backing up, or even you didn't really even have to apologize, you just stop it. There's nothing that drove me more nuts than over the next 3 to 4 weeks after this happened. It seems like Jeff Gord and Mike Joy, everything out of their mouth was Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace this, Bubba Wallace that. Oh, Bubba Wallace has got to change his pants because his car, 4 wheels just came off the. Like every 2 seconds, we had never had so many updates about Bubba Wallace until after this happened. And then it seemed like that was the most talked race car driver. You would have thought he was the most popular driver for 20 years all of a sudden.
This guy has been in the league for 7 years and has yet to bring any major sponsor to this. Then all of a sudden, we're putting his name in the hat to replace Jimmy Johnson, the greatest driver of our time, into the most infamous car of our time, the 48. How do you go from not even bringing anything to the sport to, he deserves to be in the 7-time champion's car? I mean, it seems like we're, and then NBC this week announced that they're putting Brad Daugherty in the booth, and I really think that that's a good move by NBC. Like, I love Brad Daugherty, but it's all in the back of our minds. Is there a political reason why they're putting Brad Daugherty in the booth? And honestly, to CJ Sports, I believe it is. I believe this is a political move.
I'm not a big Daugherty fan. Like, as a Cavalier, being a Cleveland Cavalier fan, yes. But having him in the studio, I've never been impressed. Like, he just says some of the obvious stuff, and I've never been really impressed. I think he would fit better being in an NBA where that's what he played and he is an expert in, and can bring, enlightenment and more information versus you've never driven a car. Like, all you can talk to us about is being a car owner and what aspect of that you were even involved. I don't know if he's just a money man in this or what his involvement is, but you only got so much knowledge just being an owner, and that's all you've done in NASCAR. I'm sorry, but then again, I can't stand listening to Petty either. So Kyle Petty, something listening to him just drives me nuts. So I guess
Kyle is not made for TV or radio, for that matter. He is overprivileged king's son. He is. Kyle Petty is who he is, and when we start talking about the announcers and the commentators. Of course, we've had Alan Bestwick on. He out of respect, refused to say anything bad about the commentating that's going on. But look, it kind of speaks for itself if NBC is bringing in another person to help with the commentating team. That look, it's just not good. And you have two high pitched voices like Jeff Gordon. I mean, like Jeff Burton and Dale Earnhardt Jr. And their two personalities don't gel well together. It's hard. It just sounds like a cheerleader convention.
See, with Dale Jr. is a good move to me. One, he's the most popular driver, and I can't stand. I'm not a Junior fan, but like I've told you, I like to have somebody in rotation that has just gotten out of driving that can bring a fresh set of knowledge. Like DW leaving the studio, that was great to me because what can DW really know about 20 generations of cars later after he's done retired? Yes, I know he's part of NASCAR, and a lot of people know DW and him doing the Icky Shuffle after winning the Daytona and all those things. And he's entertaining to listen to at times, but what does he know about today's generation car that wouldn't be better to have a Dale Jr. or Jeff Gordon? I'm not saying that these are the greatest people to listen to talk, but I like having those in the studio that are more knowledgeable about the cars and what they're going through. So I like having the Dale Jr. part of that in there. I think Dale Jarrett's kind of past his time. I would like to have somebody else, especially since they don't mesh. I don't care what network is running the show. I think Larry Mack needs to be involved, period. No matter who's got it, he needs to be under contract with NBC Sports, ESPN, Fox Sports, MRN Radio, PRN Radio, any radio. Larry Mack needs to be there, period, because he's great all the way around.
But under booth right now is Larry Mack. And then that guy, I mean, you think about what he's put forth to this sport. 20 years as a crew chief, now 20 years in the booth. Larry Mack is gold. He's going to be one of those that you look back on like BP and Buddy Baker. And you're going to say, you know what? I didn't realize how important they were until they're no longer here.
Yeah.
Larry Mack, one of the golden mics of the racing culture, and I just wish that he wasn't cut up on as much as people do. You know, he's not necessarily as much well liked commentator out there. He's earned his spot in the sport. Mike Joy, I think Mike Joy's days are getting old. I think there's we've heard Road too many times now. They're going down pit road. It's like.
Now, I do want to clarify something. I have clarified it on my show as well. With the whole Bubba Wallace thing, I don't want people to think that I have this dislike for Bubba Wallace or anything else. I just don't like how things were handled, and I don't like how nobody just went ahead and kind of took credit for their mistake instead of doubling down and then just cramming it down our throat. I just don't like that part of it. For those that don't know, Bubba Wallace was my first Cup driver, and he wasn't a Cup driver at the time, but the actual first Cup driver that I actually had an opportunity to interview. I actually got to interview him right after he won the Truck Series race in Kentucky. I was supposed to be at that race. Well, I didn't know I had media credentials for the truck race as well. I was there for the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series race. I didn't know I had passes for all three of them, so I came for two of them. And we actually had it set up through our PRs that I got to sit and have a 20-minute phone conversation with him. And he wasn't going to cut me off. He had to let me talk all day long if I wanted to, but out of respect, I didn't drag it on. I tried to stay with the 20-minute time frame. I have mad respect for Bubba Wallace. He didn't have to give me all the time. He had to call me from his personal cell phone. All the things that he did, especially us young in this company, he didn't have to do for me, and he did. So I have a lot of respect for him, and I wish him the best. I just don't like how this situation was handled, and I just wish that everybody would have took a step back and let's reevaluate this and let's handle this better instead of we're going to cram this down their throat. We're all in on this. We're not going to change our course. We're not going to say we screwed up anywhere. We're going to be hard-headed about it. And this is like back in my days when I got caught in a lie, and instead of just fessing up with the lie, I was bound and determined, no matter how ridiculous the lie was, no matter how many different people had told the truth, and I was going to stick to that lie because I wasn't going to be caught lying. Like, this is the truth no matter what. I'm all in on it. And you know, seeing how ridiculous that was back in the day, this is kind of the same scenario. Like, you had a chance to kind of just, look, we screwed up. Instead, you're sticking with it. No matter how wrong it is, you're sticking with it, and it just didn't sit over well. But I just don't want anybody to think that I'm here to bash Bubba Wallace, and I don't like Bubba Wallace or anything else. I have mad respect for him because he gave me an opportunity that a lot of drivers have never given me an opportunity to do, and I greatly will forever appreciate that.
Look, this guy's name is on the trophy at Eldora, okay? This guy went out there. He won a dirt track race at Eldora. If you don't think that Bubba Wallace doesn't have some talent, there's something wrong with it. But it's just like the Rooney Rule, and I'm probably going to catch hell for this, but it's just like the Rooney Rule in NFL. I want the best qualified person. And unfortunately, there's a Rooney Rule that says that somebody may be, because of a certain color of their skin, they may be qualified by that position because of their color of their skin. I'm not for that. I know that some people are going to be saying, well, Chris, that's not right. You know, have you looked and seen that the percentage of coaches in the NFL are predominantly white versus African American? Look, I completely understand that. But there are just as qualified black coaches in the NFL as white coaches. What I am upset about is the fact that all of a sudden, instead of respecting a race car driver for his skill, we now have to recognize that driver as a person of color. And that, it to me, takes off. When Danica Patrick, when she comes, she didn't want to be looked at as a female. She wanted to be looked at as a racer. Natalie Decker wants to be respected as a racer. Haley Dixon wants respect as a racer. And now all of a sudden, Bubba Wallace wants to be respected as a race car driver. To me, that's where the line's drawn in the sand. Look, we want to love you as a race car driver. We did not even care what color you were. We wanted to see your driver's suit. We wanted to see the helmet, and we wanted to see you compete for win. To me, Mr. CJ Sports, that's where the disappointment comes in.
Yeah.
I mean, Juan Pablo Montoya, Daniel Suarez, there have been many different ethnicities that have come through NASCAR. And I'll be honest with you, I was a humongous Juan Pablo Montoya fan. I've always liked open wheel. I've always been. Huh?
I said I couldn't stand Juan Pablo. I can't stand a lot of drivers. I don't know why. I'm weird like that. I love me some Kyle Busch. A driver nobody likes. I love me some Kyle Busch. Growing up, I was a Bill fan, though. I was an Austin Bill from Dawsonville. That was my first love right there. And then I became a Gordon fan, but I got tired of watching him. One year he won like 11 races. He won a third of the season. This is not like the NFL where I got 15 other games to watch. I can handle one person dominating. You got one race a week, that's it. So that got old quick. Then I became a Jimmy Johnson fan, and then he won 6 championships, and that got old quick. So I decided I was going to be a Kyle Busch fan before he blew up, and then I was because he was still with Hendrick Motorsports at the time, and then I was a Danica Patrick fan. One reason for obvious reasons, but two, I didn't have to worry about her also dominating the sport. So I was kind of a win-win situation.
Well, I'll tell you what. If I could pick any driver right now and feel like they're a superstar of the sport, headline news tomorrow, I would have to pick Tyler Reddick right now, Mr. CJ Sports. Tyler Reddick, I believe he is the real deal.
He's definitely come into his own as of late. I think that Richard Childress Racing has really stepped up their program. As obviously, it wasn't in competitive cars at first in the beginning of the season, and things have kind of gone in the other direction. I think this is probably a product of throwing these drivers in without the testing, and that kind of one lets you know really how good of a driver Tyler Reddick really is. To you instead of having all this time to test and all this time to practice and all this time to get these cars set and everything else, you're throwing these drivers into a car and you're getting to see who really is a racer versus someone who can adjust a car to be faster, where we're seeing who's actually get behind the wheel and just race. And so we're getting an opportunity like Tyler Reddick to see who's truly a racer.
Yeah, when you leave it like that, it's kind of wondering, if Kyle Busch wasn't a product of making my car better throughout the race.
You're right.
Yeah, because, that's been his ultimate struggle this year, CJ Sports, is, not comfortable with the car off the trailer.
We also think that, and this has been a conversation, there might be more to that. He got his contract last year. We're focused on Denny Hamlin's. We know what happens when there's multi-car teams and contracts are up, who gets the focus. I'm not going to give Kyle Busch a pass because I'm a Kyle Busch fan, and I feel that he should be out there dominating or ruffling feathers every week, which way it may be. And I feel that he's definitely not dominating, and it feels like his feathers have been ruffled as of lately. So it's not the Kyle Busch that I'm used to, but I'm a firm believer he can race anything, and he's won in the other series. He just ain't been able to get the Cup Series right. We've had years like that, though, so it's not to be unexpected. I don't think he's gone this late in the season. It's been a while since he's gone this late in the season, but we've watched him, and, that was kind of the knock early in his career. Oh, he can win the Truck Series and win the Xfinity Series, but he ain't winning much in the Cup Series. Then we went through a stretch where he was just dominating the Cup Series. So it's not out of his element to not dominate in the Cup Series and still get wins, but it's not what we're used to as of late, and I don't like it. So I think he'll make the playoffs. I'd be shocked if he doesn't find himself in victory lane before the playoffs begin.
I think we may be looking at something similar to what Tony Stewart had a few years ago in his last championship run, where they just couldn't seem to get it together, and then all of a sudden he got hot when it counted. And I believe that he's a great throw in. Do what?
Didn't he win like 5 races in the playoff or something?
Yeah, he went on an absolute tear. It was the year that he battled Carl Edwards into the last race of the season. Carl Edwards had the championship sewed up, but Tony Stewart was somehow able to pull it off. It's hard to throw in the towel on a driver of his caliber, and I also believe. Oh, let me get that right there. At the same point, I have been most impressed by Matt Diambedetto. We all felt like Matt had a lot more talent than what he was able to display. Man, other than a wreck this past weekend, that guy has been one of the most consistent cars out on the racetrack with a team like the Wood Brothers. I know there's a lot more money being pumped into Wood Brothers now than what it has been in the past, and we can thank Penske Racing for basically reviving that organization. But, man, I am telling you, Matt Diambedetto has put on a show for us week in, week out, and he has, stapled himself as a top 10 driver, Mr. CJ Sports. Do you think that we could have predicted that at the beginning of the year?
No, we knew. We saw a couple sparks. Was it Levine Racing, in that where he almost won the one race with the 95 car, if I'm not mistaken, 95 car. Didn't he almost win in them being a pilot of Joe Gibbs Racing? That Chris Bell's running in now. So we've seen him have talent. We knew if he could find himself a legit ride that was going to be strong week in and week out, that we could see something like this happen. I think that we knew it, but until we seen it, we wouldn't believe it. And now that he is in a legit ride, and Wood Brothers came around. It started with Trevor Bain, and we've had a couple other drivers in there that we'll take it up to par. One being Paul Menard. I think we just brought a sponsor to the table, and Wood Brothers went with it because they were still trying to figure themselves out. But having Ryan Blaney in there and now Matt in there, I think you've got legit drivers, and you're building your organization in the right direction. And this has been great to see Matt do what he's doing. But I think in the back, way back, in that very small, very back corner of that bubble in the back of our head, I think we knew that Matt had it in him. We just weren't sure if he was ever going to find the right ride or the right opportunity to show us, and have an opportunity to display how talented he really is.
Yeah, you nailed it. We watched this car for, Ryan Blaney, the 21 machine, when we kind of seen the resurgence. Of course, Trevor Bain put the Wood brothers back in victory lane. Ryan Blaney as well, with a couple of wins at Pocono, I believe. But when Paul Menard took the reins, we watched a team that was up on the rise kind of fall back to mid-pack.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Menard literally changed Matt DiBenedetto's career by hand-picking him to replace him. And we're all like, well, how does Paul Menard, get to tell the Wood brothers who's going to go into that ride? I don't know how that really worked out, other than Paul Menard wrote a big check for Matt DiBenedetto's sponsorship every year, and for this year. And Matt has taken this opportunity and made it his. This is his opportunity, and so much of an opportunity that I believe that over the next couple of years, Matt DiBenedetto is going to not only have a few wins under his belt, but also competing for one of the top tier rides. And I'm not going to take away that I always expect Wood brothers to hold on to a driver, but you look at Wood brothers over the last 50 years, they have been, they like to have different drivers drive for the organization. They're not really committed to one certain driver. The only marriage that they ever had was with Kyle Petty, and we all know how that one wound out, right? I think the marriage between Wood brothers and Kyle Petty lasted maybe 2 years.
Was Morgan Shepherd a long stretch, or was his short as well?
No, he was a short stretch. Michael Waltrip was a short stretch. But I think Morgan raced there 3 or 4 years. Of course, Ricky Rudd, Ken Schrader, Bill Elliott. These guys have all had their opportunity in the Wood brothers machine. And after 3 or 4 years, Wood brothers goes on to the next driver. So they've been really an opportunist. I look at Wood brothers as an opportunist team, and that's completely what Matt DiBenedetto is taking advantage of right now. John Wood even was the only Wood brothers since Leonard that has actually piloted that race car. Even they, like I said, they've been a car of opportunity, and Matt has taken it to the fullest. And I'm not saying that down the road he's going to be in a Penske ride, or he could be in a Joe Gibbs ride, or he could be in a Hendrick ride. But look, if this guy starts, anytime that you're finishing in the top 5, Mr. CJ Sports, and I want to say Winston Cup racing in NASCAR. They're knocking on the door. We watched Chase Elliott finish second 5 times before he got his first place finish. Well, we're knocking on about 5 times now that Matt DiBenedetto has either been runner-up or third place. He's there, and the win's going to happen.
I tell you what, he takes that runner-up in third place with he takes it like a champ. Like I'm a sore loser. I'm like Kyle Busch. I don't like to lose. I tell you what, Matt takes that second and third place finish with the best of them, because I don't know if I could finish second and third and still be happy about it. I mean, it's a good day at the end of the day, but I don't know. I had someone beat me back in the days with the Nintendo and the Tecmo Bowl. My mama just brought this up the other day, and someone beat me on the last play of the game, and I put my foot through the wall. I don't like to lose.
Everybody remembers Tecmo, but does anybody remember Excite Bike and the
Yes.
Formula? I guess it was Formula One game. I'm not sure. I remember it being an open wheel game, but I was somewhere in the early parts of my high school when I played the game, and man, my goodness! But everybody has to remember Excite Bike, right? I mean, that was the coolest motorcycle game that ever come out.
on my Wii, I have Excitebike. I have the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I have all the Marios. I have Contra. I have Tecmo Bowl. I have Sonic. I forget what else. But yes, Excitebike is one of the games that I have on the Wii that I've bought from the old Nintendo.
I would love to go back and build my track once again as I used to with Excitebike. Is that an option still in the game to build your own track?
Yes.
So cool, man. So cool. We're racing at Loudon this week. So it's just going to be the Cup cars. It's the Xfinity and the Truck Series. After this past weekend, they raced. They're off for a whole week. We've got just a few races left. I think a couple of double headers at Michigan. And we're going to go to Daytona. The road course race, that's going to be in place of the race at Watkins Glen. The season is almost there. As a matter of fact, a month from now, we will be at Daytona for the last race before the Chase.
Season is going rather quick. I guess that's what happens. You have 2 or 3 races a week, huh?
Yeah, the season has gone by so fast already. So Loudon this week, I believe Dover next week. Unfortunately, Dover is not going to be able to have any fans in the stands. I believe Loudon is allowed up to 25,000 fans. So, we're watching basketball with no fans. We're watching baseball with no fans. But NASCAR has been kind of the guinea pig for bringing fans back into the gate. And I've seen a report earlier this week, Mr. CJ Sports, that no COVID cases have been linked to any of the races where there have been fans allowed there. Now, isn't that awesome, man? I mean, we could be, we could be on our way to opening these gates back up. Unfortunately, I think the reason why Taz is off tonight is there's not really much to report from New York. I believe the governor has basically shut down all racing once again up in New York State. So, I mean, you got legitimate proof that Bristol and Charlotte and Talladega, none of these places created any new COVID cases. But then you got a governor who has basically dropped the ball this whole time, and he's steadily trying to take the rights away from the people and ban racing. I mean, it's just it's definitely a crazy world we're living in right now, Mr. CJ Sports. It feels so political. Either you're on the right side or you're the left side. And unfortunately, that is basically turning into a Democrat and Republican thing. And that's just not – our lives should not depend on politics, my friend. It should be based off of fact. And there's so many people that you talk to at this point in time, they feel just like I do. What are the real facts here? Nobody knows a straight answer. We're told that this doesn't work, that this is harmful, that this is, wear a mask, wear face guards. Man, I mean, are we all going to be walking around in spacesuits by November?
Possibility. With them talking about goggles and someone asked if we're going to be in hazmat suits. I don't know. There was one thing that happened.
All right.
We're going to look like they did on E.T. with those big white suits. There was a topic that I thought we were going to get into last week, and there was on the show. It was kind of a hot topic. Well, they try to make it a hot topic. I don't know if it's really considered a hot topic, but the old Quinn Hoff and making basically a left turn in the middle of the track to go down pit road, and Brad Keselowski talking about demoting and how player or drivers are being promoted and everything else. I kind of wanted to get your guys' thoughts, or at least your thoughts, on what you saw. And I don't know. I feel that some drivers are promoted a little fast. I know that sponsorship and money talks, and that's why
people we guys back down in the minor leagues because they made a rookie mistake. Brad Keselowski should have been demoted after putting Carl Edwards into the fence at Talladega.
Yes.
You know what I mean? We can blame more on a spotter than what we can Quinn Huff, because Quinn probably was told, hey, pit now. And he was expecting, something from his spotter that said, hey, you're clear or you're not clear.
Oh, I agree.
I know
I do feel
ready
some
to
drivers.
promote somebody.
Danica Patrick is one of them. I feel because she had GoDaddy in her back pocket. I think maybe she was pushed up into the Cup Series too fast. I think there are some drivers that yes are, but then there are other drivers that it's the right pace and they're deserving the opportunities they've gotten. Like I said, I understand the sponsorship and money talks, and this is why a lot of drivers end up where they're at and how fast they get to where they're at. I think that if Quinn, who we've had on the show on the One Nation Sports Show, if he had an opportunity to do it all over again, I'm sure he would. And I agree with you. It probably had a lot to do with sponsorship. And no, Brad, his first win had Carl Edwards up in the fence, so he really has no room to speak. But I do feel that there needs to be a better way to do things. I think that some drivers are moved up too quick. I feel that there needs to be a more of a farm system or a way to. There's still drivers in the Xfinity Series I feel that are more deserving of an opportunity than Quinn Hoff, who has not really done much and has landed a Cup Series ride. You got drivers in the Cup Series that have won Xfinity Series races and have put time in and are consistent, even if they've not won, at least have been top 5, top 10 drivers week in and week out that are waiting for an opportunity. And then you have someone like Quinn. Like I said, he's been on the show, great guest and a great driver, but it has not really proven that he should be out there with the Cup Series guys at this point. So I'm kind of not understanding how drivers get promoted outside of sponsorship. And like I said, I understand that's how the sport is driven. But I do feel that maybe we are at a time that maybe because the talent pool is so deep now. Before it was you had to promote because we weren't having enough drivers getting into the Cup Series to replace the garbage that we had at one point. Now we are very deep when it comes to the Xfinity Series, the Truck Series, the ARCA Series, even as far back as the K&N Series. I think that maybe there's a time that we're at a time now that maybe we need to reevaluate how we promote and get drivers to the Cup Series.
Well, I'll just throw one name out there at you, and if you remember, and you know where I'm going with this, Kevin Conway. You know, we allowed Kevin Conway, who nobody had ever heard of in their life, bring, a big-time sponsor, Extend, to the sport, and he was the biggest joke there ever was. He actually believes in our record books for Rookie of the Year for the year that he come in, but unfortunately there just wasn't. Watch out for that big hole. Right, that hole right there. Kevin Conway. Do you remember that guy?
Yes, we've had him on the show.
You see, we don't even know where he come from. And all of a sudden, he just shows up one year. It was, of course, during the beginning years of Front Row Motorsports. And he brought a big-time sponsor. It's all about the money game in NASCAR. And from what I understand about Quinn Hoff, he brought money to the table. And so, it was actually cheaper for him to get a Cup ride than it was an Xfinity or a truck ride based off of how the budget was for Star.com Motorsports. And, you can't blame a guy for trying to make the best of his money. And once again, if we're a sponsor-driven sport, then, if you have the money, you'll get the ride. We let Danica Patrick up way too quick. She was in a Cup ride way too fast. You named me the driver that actually competed from coming up into the Cup Series too fast. Joey Logano, that guy, his career was stunted because he was brought up too quick. Eric Jones, stunted. Daniel Suarez, what could have been if Daniel had a couple more years down in the lower divisions, but he had sponsorship, and let me tell you something, money buys these rides. Until our sport no longer depends on a sponsorship, this is the product that we have. And I am not going to take any, unless somebody gets killed, I'm not going to take 400 laps of green flag racing versus somebody who made a dumb mistake and caused a good caution that bunched the field back up. I think that's the entertainment side to it. Over the last 2 years, cautions have been damn near irrelevant because, the equipment doesn't fail and all the drivers are the best of the best. I'll be honest with you. That's what's so cool about going back and watching a 91 Busch Grand National race. Man, there was entertainment. There was side-by-side racing. There was restarts. That was back when the leader may start 5 cars, with 10 cars in front of them who were still trying to get back on the lead lap. Only in the last 10 years have we lined these cars up side by side based off of their position. It used to be that we restarted the lap cars in front of the leaders. Who would even understand that?
The whole inside used to be lap cars.
Yeah, and if you were almost a lap down, then you started in front of the leader.
Yes.
Yeah, we've come a long way, and unfortunately, the bad side to that is you go back to Brad Keselowski, the guy who opened his mouth, and I love Brad. I'm a big fan of Brad. Y'all know that, and I very, very rarely am critical of Keselowski. But when he sits there and he opens his mouth about that, you have to go back and you have to say, well, you know what, guy? You were that same kid in your daddy's truck who couldn't even get around a racetrack at a short track without spinning out and causing a caution. The only reason why you even got the ride is because Shane Huffman was the biggest disappointment ever at Junior Motorsports outside of Kelly Byers. Josh Weiss has more talent than any of these guys, and unfortunately he just didn't make it. But Shane Huffman, who the hell remembers that guy? He literally stunk the show up so bad that Dale Jr. had to fire him mid-season, and that's how Keselowski got the role to fill into the 88 Navy truck. And, that was an opportunity that catapulted Keselowski's career to what it is today. Had somebody not said, you know what, this guy's daddy put down his dues in racing. We don't know much about Keselowski other than he's got braces and a horse's mouth. But at the same time, let's give this kid a shot. Let's just see what he can do. Keselowski made the best of it. Glenn Hoff is no different, man. He is no different.
On a whole totally different subject. This not made me about Fallout, though. Someone just posted Chad Ochocinco and quoted, in quotes, I took Viagra before every game, and people thought they'd stop me. How are you going to stop me running on 3 legs every Sunday?
I love that to this day. Come on, man. If I had Terrell Owens or Chad Ochocinco, which we still call him Ochocinco even though he changed his name back to Johnson years ago, we would. I swear, Chad was more entertaining than T.O. ever was. To this day, I feel like he plays the media for those laughs. T.O., you put him on TV, it's an argument. You put a microphone in front of Chad, and he's going to come up with something crazy as hell like that. The quote of the year. That is the quote of the year right there. we need more of that in NASCAR, man. What do you say?
Most definitely. That was all I could do while you were talking, not to sit there and interrupt and laugh, because that was about the funniest thing I've heard all day.
Yeah, I've seen that earlier as well. But, Chad Ochocinco, making us laugh as always. But, I appreciate you filling in tonight, Mr. CJ Sports. And I'm not sure what was going on with Craig, and I did not know that Taz was not going to be here tonight. But, it's good to be back on. It's good to be on the radio, and you've always had my back there, and I appreciate you sitting in and filling the co-host's role there unexpectedly. And I know that you have things that you are trying to get done. Of course, as dedicated as I am, I did a whole show with dinner right there in front of me at Buffalo Wild Wings while my family got to hear one side of the conversation. They couldn't hear your side of the conversation, so they only got my side of it. But it just shows the dedication that we have for the sport and the love that we have it. And I do appreciate you sitting in tonight and filling in for Craig as he's absent.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No problem.
Well, hopefully, guys, y'all tune in this weekend to the race. We need more viewers, as Mr. CJ Sports said. Look, the reason why I'm not turning NASCAR off and I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. I cannot blame Kevin Harvick for what NASCAR did. I cannot blame William Byron for what NASCAR did. I cannot blame Brett Keselowski for what NASCAR did. If you didn't watch that ARCA race the other night and watch Brett Holmes out of Alabama, Bunktown there in Alabama, Auburn student, go out there and whoop tail on Ty Gibbs, who's basically gotten everything handed to him. You know, he's another my pop, you know, boy, which was crazy because even Austin Dillon to this day he's running on the fact that somebody said that he had a silver spoon in his mouth, and so that has given him drive to be as good of a race car driver as he I believe he is. But, you know, go back to Ty Gibbs. The kid's gotten everything given to him. He's won 5 ARCA races in a row. Brett Holmes comes out there, and he John Holmes the whole field, man. I mean, that sorry for that reference there, but you didn't laugh either. So. But he did. I mean, okay, we're talking about Viagra, John Holmes. There you go. But, you know, and to get to see him pop up there and say, you know, look, I struggled for this, I earned this. That's what racing's all about. That's why I can't blame a league or a sanctioning body. I can't turn my back on these racers just because somebody up at a top office is making bad decisions. That's not retrospective what the fans believe. And so, you know, you can hate NASCAR all you want to, but if you have any love for these drivers, they need your support. Because most, I would say 99% of these drivers have raced at a short track near you, and they were once in those grandstands just as kids as our kids are, and they wished that they were hoped and wished for an opportunity to one day do what these drivers are doing, and they got that opportunity. So I will forever support these guys because it's not the league that I follow, Mr. CJ Sports. It's the individual drivers. It's these guys that we've gotten to know over the years, just like Brett Holmes. And, you know, I'm already beginning to dislike Ty Gibbs. And this guy, he hasn't been around 5 minutes, you know, but that's the relationship that we build with these guys. And so, you know, no matter who did what and why, you know, what league did this and what statements are trying to be made on the political side, the fact of it is I'm still a Kevin Harvick fan. I'm still a Keselowski fan. I'm still a Dale Jr. fan. Even though he gets on my nerves more nowadays than ever before, it's, you know, really crazy. Me and you've kind of taken the opposite because you didn't like Dale Jr. as a driver, and I don't like Dale Jr. as pretty much he's involved in everything now. Just if you wanted to be so damn involved, go back to driving, right? Take your retirement, enjoy it. But, you know, you and I are kind of the opposite on that. You've enjoyed this new Dale Jr. I feel like, hey, it's time for me to move on as a fan. And I can't find another driver because I'm steadily caught up in what Dale Jr. is still doing, even though he's not driving a race car. So I mean, we both, you know, we're kind of caught in the middle here between how these drivers reflect our everyday lives. And you know, I mean, that's what's fun about Thursday night, man. We get to sit down and we actually get to talk about it. But I think that we've held the attention of these listeners for long enough, Mr. CJ Sports, and I'll be glad to let you go back to doing what it was that you were supposed to be doing here tonight. And like I said before, I appreciate you filling in. And why don't you give us some shout-outs to those sponsors so we can pay some bills before we head out.
Yes, sir. I want to make sure that I thank Carolina Sports Plus and More to Music. You guys can check them out check out Carolina Sports Plus on Facebook, or you can check out More to Music at more2music.com. Also, go and follow us on Twitter at 110 Nation. Like us on Facebook, the 110 Nation Sports. Check out our site, www.the110nationsports.com for the latest. We're supposed to be working on some different articles and stuff going on. We have released 3 press releases today. Got to thank Miss Brandy. She's been taking care of doing the press releases that have been forwarded to us. So I don't have to focus on that. So I want to thank her as well. I did talk about LaShawn McCoy signing with Tampa Bay, joining Tom Brady and Gronk. They build themselves a team down there. So
Brady
make sure
McCoy, huh?
Oh, yes. Down there, a 1-year contract. Like I said in my bit there, kind of reminds you of the old LeBron and Miami Heat, adding some veteran pieces for cheap for a year here and a year there to continue having a good team out there. So we'll see how this fares out for Tampa Bay. Working on Joe Burrows. He finally has signed his contract with Cincinnati. And I got a couple other things that I'll be having released between tonight and tomorrow morning. So you guys make sure you guys check that out. I will be back in the studio Monday night, 110 Nation Sports Show. Izzo will be joining me at 8:30 to get you guys caught up on week 1 of NHL action. So make sure you guys check that out as well.
All right, and we'll be back next Thursday night for another episode of Race Chat Live. We appreciate y'all listening in here tonight. And like I said, we'll be back same bad time, same bad place next week, man. Thank you, Mr. DJ Sports. Bye-bye.
Bye.